Greetings and salutation, friends. We continue day 2 of the World Future Studies Society, World Future Studies Federation conference taking place live in Berlin. We are doing something hybrid this year, so it's almost as having a 24 around the clock. So if you're in Berlin and you are sleeping, but you are having a sleepless night, hopefully you're listening 4 a.m., 5 a.m., which now is 6 a.m. in Berlin time. It's now noon for those of us. No, where is noon? 6 hours ahead. We just left Philippines, which was noon their time, so they're now 1 p.m. We are midnight at on the East Coast where I am, and in the Pacific region, we'll be joined by the president of Nauru right after this session. Well, not quite after, 7 o'clock our time, Berlin time, with Fireside Chat, and we're looking forward to that. So we are back to the East Coast of the Americas with Dr. Shams Hamid, who is in Toronto, and he's going to be talking about the imaginable or the unimaginable. Which is it? Dr. Shams, please give us your take on how we might use stories from the future to imagine the imaginable.
Okay.
Or reimagine the imaginable.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate. It is 12 a.m. right now, and I have my students in Pakistan. It is 9 a.m. early in the morning, and it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to the futurists. We have a new institute the only institute in a Pakistani university called Imagine Institute of Future Studies. So we are very passionate about imagination because all the research that we have done so far tells us that the imagination is the only way to anticipate your future. And not only that, you can you always recreate your memory. It is impossible to even recall a memory without imagination. And even when you are looking at the present, there is no other way but to use imagination because you are interpreting your present. So with imagination, you anticipate your future, you recall your memory, and you also interpret your present. So it's all about imagination. And there were people a long time ago who said it's all about Maya, it's a veil. So it seems like this is where it is. Whatever we look at and however we interpret it, it is basically our own interpretation at that time. And that interpretation depends on a multiple of factors. What mood we are in, like this is early morning for many people. So this is a time when you are excited and you are open to the world. And if the mood is changing, with that, your interpretation will also be impacted. So our emotions play a very important role in how we imagine. Same is true for our calculation or our computation. All of that depends on our imagination, so to say. I'm going to share my screen for a bit. I understand that I don't have a lot of time here, so I will stick to few slides. I will not go through all the slides that I had prepared. I hope you guys can see the screen right now. The title was Imagining Futures with Imaginable. And I'll tell you what is imaginable, because this is a new term. We are all already aware of what sensibles are. In philosophy, we talk about it. All the information that we receive through our sense organs are called sensibles. And we are also aware of intelligibles for that matter, because whatever category that we make, whatever concepts we make, we call them intelligible. And these two terms have been there in philosophy for thousands of years now. And if you want to introduce a new term in philosophy, it's not that easy. And we are trying it to include this new term, imaginable. So I will take you guys to the next slide here, why we are talking about it. This is the agenda that I was supposed to go through with, and I'm going to do it very quickly because of the time limit. So we'll have background, high-level goal, problem statement, focus, and key concepts that will allow us to understand what are the proposed solutions. And we have two solutions. One is theory of imagination and imaginables, and the other one is a pedagogical model that we call triple I, interaction, interpretation, and innovation. This is a background. I'm sure that all of you guys would already be aware of them. COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all of us, and it has shown us how we are interconnected and interdependent today. Climate change is another issue that we are facing. Recently, there was an IPCC report, and the General Secretary of United Nations said that this is code red for humanity. So climate change is there. And two things that came out of that report. The first was the admission that human activity is responsible for deterioration in the climate. And it also included the part that with collective human action, we can somehow overcome climate change. So collective human action is very important. No one nation can do it. Multiple nations together cannot do it. Everybody has to chip in. We have we are anticipating technological disruption, artificial intelligence, smart machines taking over our jobs. Some assumptions or some fears go that far as to say they will take over. So there are technological disruptions that we are anticipating that might cause a lot of loss of jobs that we have seen during COVID-19 as well. So that is what we are anticipating in future too. How do we deal with these challenges? And then, of course, global conflicts. There are multiple wars going on right now in the world. And how do we change that situation? Now we have the causes for these, why we have these challenges today. Human activity is one of the major challenge, and that's what has caused climate change, for instance, or that has caused technology, that is going to cause technological disruptions and global conflicts. And the other cause is competition. We have been competing with each other for a very long time, and now we cannot work or survive that way. We have to work together. There has been some indifference, some greed, which has also caused the situation of inequality, which is political inequality, social inequality, economic, environmental, and gender inequalities. So there are a number of inequalities which causes the challenges that we are facing today, and we have to work at them in order to overcome the challenges we have at our hands. And another cause is irresponsible consumption and production. We are consuming a lot. We are consuming more than the earth can afford to give us. We are not giving it a chance to rejuvenate. And there are some solutions. Collective human action is one of them. We need to cooperate and collaborate instead of competing. And we have to enhance empathy instead of indifference. We have to implement sustainable development goals of United Nations that all the countries have signed on. And we have to reimagine education for 21st century competencies and skills. These are the solutions. I will quickly go to the high-level goal of the Institute of Future Studies at Iqra University, which is called Imagine, which is the first Institute of Future Studies at a Pakistani university. And our goal is to create an equitable, sustainable, and humane world interconnected through empathy. So this is the goal that we are working to achieve. This is, the problem we are trying to solve is to construct a holistic method of education for collective actions to create a desirable and a sustainable future. So that's what we are trying to do. So to do that, we need to understand the nature of interconnectedness and interdependence. We are interconnected and interdependent on multiple layers, multiple levels, chemically, biologically, socially. So these are all our interconnectedness, and now we can see it today globally. We are connected socially, economically, environmentally. So we are connected. And the same is true for all human capacities. We have multiple capacities. We can imagine, we have feelings, and we can reason. All these are powerful capacities that we have, and we have to think how they interconnect with each other. And at the end of what we are trying to achieve here is to create a methodology of education for empowering humans to create sustainable and desirable futures. So we will present a theory of imagination and a pedagogical model, and I'll go quickly over them. So this is our definition, or the focused concept of what imagination is. So imagination is the screen on which our instincts, senses, feelings, mental states, concepts, and ideas are presented for processing through perception, introspection, reflection, creative imagination, and articulation. It's a mouthful, I understand. To put it simply, imagination is that screen on which we have all our thoughts, all our feelings, all the information we are receiving from external world or from our internal world, which has our instincts in it, which has feelings in it, our mental states. All of these are shown to us on the screen of imagination. So this is what it does. It shows us everything. If I don't have imagination, I will not be able to see anything. Even despite the fact that I have my eyes working, I won't be able to see it. So that's what imagination does. It gives you a screen, and that allows you to process information that you have received through perception, through introspection, through reflection, and through creative imagination. And creative imagination is a little different. What we understand by the term imagination most of the time is creative imagination, which is that it allows you to blend ideas. It allows you to blend impressions. Like I can create, we have a concept, or we have an idea of a mermaid, which is not there, which is not real, but still we can imagine it. The same way we can imagine a square circle. I can do that. So that is the power of creative imagination, that it does not have to be necessarily logical or real. So we create new things with the help of this creative imagination. And when I talk to a lot of scientists of Organization of Islamic Countries, when I was interviewing them, all of those scientists said that imagination plays a very important role in our work. So all cognitive processes, including perception, introspection, reflection, and creative imagination and articulation, are mediated by imagination. It does not only mediates all the conscious processes, but also precipitates human reflexive activities. And imagination simulates threatening and painful stimuli of the environment in our mind to assist in triggering instinctual defense mechanisms. Nothing can be rendered meaningful unless it is presented as imaginable through the action of imagination. So that is how important imagination is. Now, imaginable is a product of imagination. Imagination turns instincts, sensibles, feelings, and memory into iconic imaginable. Imagination processes iconic imaginable through introspection, reflection, which is induction and deduction, and creative imagination, resulting in the transformation of that iconic imaginable into and indexical imaginable. And finally, indexical imaginable is articulated or expressed in a language, resulting in a symbolic imaginable. So we have three different kinds of imaginable. So any information that our mind receives that we imagine, we create iconic imaginable. We try to understand it. So when I see something, I try to make sense of it. And that is the icon that I create in my mind. And then I try to understand it. I associate it with different ideas. Those can be logical ideas, like giving it a name, trying to categorize it, trying to find causal relations, or I can associate it with my imagination, or maybe based on my emotional experience with that thing. So there are a number of ways in which I can index an iconic imaginable. So once I have seen something, I use my reflection, introspection, and creative imagination to make sense of it. And that becomes my indexical imaginable. And when indexical imaginable is articulated, it turns into a symbolic imaginable, which is the words that I use. So if I'm trying to solve a mathematical problem, the language I'll use will be mathematical. So I'll have to go with the rules um, and conventions of that language. So now I'm not going to go through it because I have also already done that. And now this is the creative imagination, which I have already talked about. That creative imagination is the capacity for blending impressions, feelings, concepts, and ideas to form novel ideas that are neither necessarily not logical nor real. There are some key concepts: sensibles, information coming from sensory organs; feeling, information received from internal world; an expression of instinct, drive, mood, and mental states; intelligible, a concept produced via reflection using induction and deduction; and perception is the compilation and interpretation of sensibles, feelings, and memory. Introspection is the awareness of mental states, moods, and feelings, and reflection is the process of induction and deduction. So this is the proposed solution, one of them, theory of imagination and imaginables. Here's a map, how it happens. So any information coming to us, whether it is coming from external world through our sense organs, or it is coming from our internal world, which is feeling. I mean, if it is a feeling coming from within, or we are recalling a memory, past experiences, all that goes through a process of filter, which is called perception. So the perception is the one which processes all the information we are receiving from our external or internal world, and it creates an iconic imaginable, which is a product. So we have filters and we have products. So imaginable is a product, and it's a product of imagination. So we have all the information processed through perception, creating our iconic imaginable. And that iconic imaginable then, in turn, is filtered through reflection or induction and deduction, as I said earlier. And it also is filtered through our introspection. When we try to understand how are we feeling, why are we feeling this way, is it based on our previous experiences? So whenever we are mindful of our mental states, our moods and all, we are filtering. And we also filter the iconic imaginable using a creative imagination, where we are blending ideas. We do not have to think whether it is real, whether it is true, whether it is even logical. And once this process is done, at the end of it, we get another product, which is indexical imaginable. And that indexical imaginable, whatever we have concluded, is expressed or articulated. And that filter gives us the final product of the words or the symbolic imaginable. So if I am a painter, I am going to paint, that is my language. If I'm a dancer, that's my language. So I'll just go to the next one. This is the model that we are proposing. It is based on a theory of imagination and imaginable, and it is called Triple I. The first process is interaction, and the students that we have at Imagine Institute, they are taking up Introduction to Future Studies course. They would vouch for it that we begin with interaction and we present the topic, then we elicit their responses through brainstorming, and that gives us an idea of what our students have understood, and that is their iconic imaginable. So that we reach out to their iconic imaginable through that brainstorming. Once we are done with that, we ask them a question to think about. So we have questions related to how did they feel about it, what are their emotions, what kind of mood they are in when they are looking at this iconic imaginable. And we also ask them to use why question. Why is it like that? So that is that to make them reflect, to use their power of logic. And we also ask them what if questions. So to make them use their creative imagination. And at the end of that, we have indexical imaginable. And once we have indexical imaginable, we work on innovating, like, I mean, how do we articulate it? How do we express that? So during interaction, we are brainstorming. During interpretation, we are collaborating. All the students collaborate with each other and with the facilitators to process iconic imaginable using our introspection, reflection, and creative imagination. And finally, they present their ideas in their groups or individually, and that is finally gives us the symbolic imaginable. So imagining futures with imaginables was the title of the talk today. And without imagination, once again, without imagination, we cannot recreate past. We cannot interpret present, and we cannot anticipate futures. So imagining is very important. All of us have this capacity. All of us use that all the time. We never have complete information about anything that we want to do. We always use estimates. We always use our guess. We always use all the powers that we have, and we have multiple powers. We are powerful people. We have multiple capacities. We can use them all together instead of prioritizing one over the other. We think that there is no hierarchy kind of thing going on here. All these capacities work in tandem, and the reason is not a priority over, has a priority over emotions, or emotions do not have a priority over reason. It's the same way about creative imagination. So all these powers are there to help us, and I hope that this theory, this way of looking at things would help us create a future which is not only desirable, but sustainable too. So I'm done with my talk. I hope I have not taken too much time here. Okay.
No, I think we're good. Thank you so much, Dr. Sham. So I understand now. So this institute is the first of its kind in Pakistan. It's a startup. And I really must commend you on that bold move, because I do think it's incumbent of those of us from WFSF to make a concerted effort in the next 2 years to get a lot of centers started around the world. I think that if we're going to make it into the other side of this border we're on, I like to like our current state, COVIDemic, as a border between ability to turn east, turn left, east, turn west, or turn back, but we can't go forward in the same way, because we're gonna be like a herd of whatever over a cliff. That's what I think this COVIDemic stands for. And I think that to the extent that we can introduce future studies in universities or in communities or different levels, depending on what you're trying to do, like what I'm trying to do in the Caribbean region and in Africa to some extent as well, we're going to be able to accelerate the kind of a paradigm shift to sustainability among enough people. And so I would just like to offer that part of your work should be to take some of this, some of what you're doing is very much the academic side of it,
Yeah.
but take some of this and turn it into the practical side of it. And really, while you're building out your degree program, do some parallel certificate programs or things where that, if they eventually were to come back, having done this course, like, or this 4-week course or a 6-week course, having done that, it would amount to 2 credits or a credit in a university. So if they were to come back at some point and say, hey, now you have a bachelor's or a master's or whatever, you will be able to take that on board. Because sometimes in a university, it takes a longer time to get into the formal credit system, but you can always do these short things, professional certification.
Okay, this Accra University is offering this Introduction to Future Studies course as a mandatory course for all the disciplines of Accra University.
Wow,
So it is
that's
already
major. So it's not as sneaky. So what I'm working on, which is not as bold, is to have, but it's going to make kind of snuck in, is to have what like an introduction to sustainability engineering.
Mm-hmm.
As a mandatory course for all engineers. Then I'm going to have like a starter module, like foresight thinking or something as a module in the course. But then when you go to the graduate level, you may have a whole course in foresight and scenario planning that can be taken by industrial engineers or chemical engineers or civil engineers as an elective for their master's and their PhD. And I'm trying to rapidly put that in place, meaning that I don't want this to be like 10 years before it happens. So okay. I am trying to find partners. And so today, this morning, well, on my time in the morning, I was able to convene a small working group launch with the partnership of the Global Engineering Dean's Council. Okay. And that was really delightful. One of the things I want to ask, given the current, like say, in back and forth in Pakistan, how would you intend to, or let me rephrase this, do you think that this institute will be able to make a dent into popularizing the willingness to have a conversation about the future of Pakistan, and from the point of view of gender issues and religious issues, in ways that allow people to not kind of get bent out of shape and create more havoc? Do you think that this imagination process will be the space that allows that conversation to happen?
It does, in fact. Like, I mean, we have been conducting this course for over 3 semesters now. This is the 4th semester, and from this semester it's mandatory. So every semester we get like 2,500 students to 3,000 students to teach. And when we had started, we did not use the pedagogy that we have developed. I mean, we are using now in this semester particularly. But even in the previous semesters, when we talked about their future, it allows them to think and to open up. So that is very important. And we have one survey that we conduct at the beginning and at the end of the course, where we ask them multiple questions based on the future studies assumptions. So do you think that future is not predetermined? Do you think future cannot be predicted? Do you think you have agency to shape future? And it is so heartening to look at the responses that students give out. They are young people. And in Pakistan, we have 64% youth, which is a huge number. And it is not only a potential, but it can also create a lot of problems, especially the time that we are in right now for youth. Situation is not that great, and they will have a lot more problems in finding jobs and making a living, especially in a developing country like Pakistan. So, but still, when our students think about their future, I feel that they begin to open up. They begin to see and transcend the differences that they have. They
Mm-hmm.
start thinking in terms of the fight they had previously between different ethnicities, between different languages. They begin to look at the future. And whenever you're
Uh-huh.
looking at the future, that is the way to make alliances. When you try to create a new alliances based on the history, sometimes the history is not that great. It does
Mm-hmm.
not help you. It is much better to think and make plans and make alliances based on the future instead of still sticking to the past, which might have a lot of problems, a lot of trauma that we have seen um, everywhere in almost all the developing countries, including Pakistan. So the young people, they are very open, and they are not only open, they are motivated, they have a lot of optimism, and that can be a source of energy, but it can
Yes.
also but it can be very, very disruptive too, unless they are given a chance to create kind of future that they want. Because
Yes.
I'm old, my thinking is old thinking. I don't think about politics the way these young kids do. They think more in terms of I mean, I used to think in terms of pyramids. Like, I mean, there is a king sitting on the top, or the president or the prime minister, but they think more in terms of community. They are interconnected with each other. For
Mm-hmm.
me to understand and come to realize that there is interconnectedness and interdependence, it took me a long time. It took me to study a lot of stories from different cultures and a lot of philosophy and science, but for them, it comes naturally. They know they are connected, and that's how they feel. So they think differently. They are not bound by those kind of restrictions and limitations that I found myself bound in.
Mm-hmm.
They are more liberated, they're more open people. And it's
Yes.
same is true for both gender, whether my male students or female students. And when
Yes.
they interact with each other, it's a wonderful interaction. It is based on respect. And
Yes.
I mean, there are other courses that we want to add in, because there are a lot of students when we are giving our online lectures and they have to present their future story, their whole family is sitting with them and listening to what their kid is planning
That's nice.
for them and for themselves. So it's a
Yes.
wonderful experience, because now we can participate. And
Yes.
there are other courses that we want to add in. We want to offer future studies as a minor. So we need to have like 6 courses, 3 credits each.
Yes.
And that's what we are heading towards. But we are very young, and we
Yes.
were born at the time of COVID-19.
Yes. Well, I can say one thing before I shut down and get ready for my next session. That certainly I would love to have another conversation with you. I'm thinking that we might know that the academy has been born and the new accreditation process has been put up. It'd be really great to have a body of knowledge, because I don't personally have a time to sit down and try and figure this all out. I know everybody's into the competition business, but I think this is too important to have a competitive approach. I think
Okay.
if we're serious about a paradigm shift, then we need to have, I should be able to say, hey, Shams, what is in your courseware? What are some of the no,
Yeah.
I might teach it slightly differently, obviously, but what is in your courseware? Because I want to do a class like that at a university in Jamaica or university in
Oh,
Guyana,
please do that. We would love to
and you
share
say,
and we
here's the
would like to learn
curriculum,
from you.
and I can say, okay, I'm going to tweak it for engineering. Once I tweak it, I send it back to you and say, okay, here's what I'm doing for the engineers. I know. So we now have this sort of, in some ways, this helps us to get accreditation and standards done faster, because if people are sharing their information anyway, and we're challenging each other to say, okay, yes, I see why you teach it that way. However, I'm going to use this approach because number one, I feel more comfortable teaching that way. But as long as the same content is there, or we might get a new idea about something. I mean, I think that that sort of a conversation. I think what I'm going to do is for Human Futures magazine, I would also invite you to consider crafting an essay about, design and delivery of a new program, because it's you're giving birth, right? I would like you to look at my book as an option for maybe having some of your students use that book, because what is different about it? It has stories in it, right? From the year 3000 to the year 2030.
Okay.
It tries to introduce the construct of mythology, just doing many things.
Yeah.
In a very small book, it's not that big, it's only 100 and some pages, but it tries to do a lot. It introduces the concept of mythology, an African god and the gods in the conversation. Because I wanted to find a way to introduce planetary consciousness without talking a lot about planetary consciousness and the theory of planetary consciousness. And I also wanted to include causal layered analysis. So I said, I'm thinking, I've always thought that the cause of all these things are deeply embedded mythologies about who we are and where we come from. And so I used that as a starting point, which I set in no time. So the mythology happens in no time, and then the god travels through time and then goes back in no time. And in between that, now I have this whole theory about the Judeo-Christian perspective that says, we must conquer and we must use up and we must, and the whole global economy that is predicated on this mindset that must now be shifted to a more indigenous people's philosophy that is very clear in saying the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth.
Yeah.
And I go one step further to say, the cosmos do not belong to us. We belong to the cosmos as we enter the spacefaring season of our maturingness as a species. So I think it'd be helpful for some of your students to read it, because a lot of the futures books I've seen are very thick, and they also don't place it in a philosophy of a developing country mindset. This is a very developing country mindset book, because that's who I am. Yes, I work in Washington, D.C., but I worked on development, and I was always at odds sometimes with the system in which I work, because I'm like, what are they talking about? It's not real.
I would definitely look up your book.
Yes, it's on Amazon. So yeah,
and I mean, it is wonderful, because one of the principles that we discuss with our students is Ubuntu, an African principle, and the stories that
it's in this book.
Okay, already.
It's in this book.
Okay.
So you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this.
It's a wonderful idea. I am, because we are
yes, you're gonna love this book. I have a whole economy. It's called Ubuntu Economic Agenda. And then what happened was, I wrote a chapter in this book, but it just came out. Okay. This is a book that Rohit does out of London.
Okay.
And I have a chapter in there about Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific futures, because I was annoyed, because when COVID hit, the French guy, we're going to test all the vaccines in Africa. I got so angry. I said, okay, watch. I'm going to change I'm going to disrupt the whole plan here for Africa. So that's what is in here. And then I was very busy last year. And then I had another chapter in this book.
Man, you write too much.
I don't write a lot. It's like I haven't written in years. I haven't written since 2014. And all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, people called me. So this book is actually about geoethics.
Okay.
And it was published by this German gentleman I met at a workshop. And I'm the only non-geologist or geoethics person in there. But I said, I can't write unless I'm angry about something. He said, what are you angry about? I said, I'm angry about the fact that these stupid people, some town in China wants to make an artificial moon. Yeah. And I'm angry about the fact that some group wants to put green sand on Caribbean beaches, which are green. And it's like, why do we have to have these grandiose schemes? Why can't we just fix the things that we can fix? Yeah. Because we have this hubris, about, oh, we can make all these great things. So I am very committed to developing countries, in particular, accelerating intake, uptake of future studies. And so definitely, let's exchange some ideas. Are you LinkedIn?
Yes, I am. I'm gonna
I
share my
look you up.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be so nice.